Hi there, very good morning. Welcome back to ET Now. You're watching Market Cafe with me, Kanishka Sarkar and Srishti Sharma. Over the next 1 hour, we'll take you through all the global and domestic cues that you must watch out for and also tell you about the stocks that you need to keep on your radar today. Let's get started with an eye on the globe and see how the US markets fared overnight. And it was a rather negative day coming in for the US markets. They were dragged down by losses in key artificial intelligence names. Now, overnight, the S&P 500 slipped about 0.1%. That's after giving up early gains. The Dow also edged slightly lower, whereas the Nasdaq Composite that fell more than 0.5%. As underperforming tech stocks, they saw renewed selling pressure. If we talk about individual stocks, Broadcom dropped about 5.6%, ServiceNow tumbled 11.5%, and Oracle that fell more than 2.7%. Other than that, Microsoft that also closed lower. This as investors continue to take profits in the high-flying AI names and rotate it into other parts of the market that includes healthcare and utilities as well. Now, despite the decline and the broader market trend, that remains positive with the US stocks still on track for a winning year. Now, market leadership that is beginning to broaden with industrials, financials, consumer discretionary and materials, all of these sectors showing improving momentum. So yes, that's how the market is looking, shaping up. Srishti, pretty negative days what we saw yesterday, a negative start to the week, but the broader trend seems to be positive.
All right, so that's about the US markets, but interesting moves when it comes to the commodity world as well, because it's the crude that has been under pressure for quite some time now, and yet again crude is seen to be dropping to the early 2021 levels. Is the low oversupply concerns that is seen to be outweighing the geopolitical risk. Now, as of now, Brent oil is trading and hovering around that $60 per barrel mark with a bit of a negative bias. Now, along with that, it's the natural gas prices that extends the losses for the third straight session. For now, with respect to gold, that is seen to be trading absolutely flat. But overnight, when it comes to the silver prices, we have already seen a jump of 2%. And even today, silver is gaining and trading with a gains of almost 0.5%.
All right, so that's all about commodities, but let's get started and tell you all of the top global stories that we are tracking this morning. And first up, the latest on tariffs. Now, Trump is yet again doubling down on tariffs as both an economic and national security tool. Now, claiming that markets have hit repeated record highs, Trump said that tariffs have driven wealth back into the U.S. and pushed chip makers, especially from Taiwan, to shift to manufacturing stateside. Now, he argued that the strategy has strengthened supply chains, boosted domestic production, and enhanced national security as well, and has called the past 10 months unprecedented in economic gains. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
We've had the greatest stock market in history, Brian. We have a stock market that's gone up 52 times to new highs during a 10-month period, my 10 months. My first 10 months, we set a record. 52 days, we had the highest stock market in history, including a day ago. And I didn't look today. Maybe it's up today, I don't know. But we had 52 altogether, and there's never been anything like it. And the reason are the tariffs have brought vast amounts of wealth into our country. That countries that have taken our car companies, those car companies are all coming back. The AI is coming at levels that nobody's ever seen before.
All right, but Donald Trump has escalated America's drug war, formally branding fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction. Now, the executive order hands the Pentagon and intelligence agencies expanded powers against drug traffickers, treating fentanyl less as a public health crisis and more as a national security threat. The move builds on Trump's designation of cartels as terror groups and follows deadly U.S. strikes on suspected drug vessels action. Legal experts say that this may stretch or cross the law.
That's why today I'm taking one more step to protect Americans from the scourge of deadly fentanyl flooding into our country. With this historic executive order I will sign today, we're formally classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction, which is what it is. No bomb does what this is doing. 200 to 300,000 people die every year that we know of. So we're formally classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction.
All right, so that's the latest coming from Trump. But let's get to you more now. Elon Musk has shattered another wealth record. Forbes says that Musk's net worth has crossed $600 billion, driven by plans for a SpaceX IPO that could value the rocket maker at $800 billion. Now, Musk's 42% stake alone could add over $160 billion to his fortune. Tesla shares, they've also climbed, helped by progress on robotaxis, while XAI is reportedly raising fresh capital at a $230 billion valuation.
Wall Street is moving closer to near 24/7 market. Now, Nasdaq plans to file with the SEC to extend stock trading to 23 hours a day, 5 days a week, citing surging global demand for the U.S. equities. The shift would put Nasdaq alongside the NYSE and CBOE, which are also pushing round-the-clock trading, and if approved, non-stop trading could launch in late 2026.
Moving on, days after U.S. delegation's visit to India to negotiate the much-awaited trade deal between the two countries, government sources have said that India has refused to open market for U.S. agricultural products in the trade deal.
And days after Mexico levied steep tariffs ranging from 5 to 50%, Commerce Ministry has confirmed that India is engaged with Mexico for talks on Preferential Trade Agreement. Now, these discussions were initiated on December 12th. Let me take it across to my colleague Sumita, who is here with more details. Sumita.
That's right. India is engaged with Mexico as far as a trade deal or a preferential trade agreement with the country is concerned. Remember, this is after Mexico has decided to levy higher tariffs on countries with which it does not have an FTA or a PTA. And this kicks into effect from January 1st, 2026. Remember, Mexico had first introduced the proposal in September to support local production, but then the country ended up deferring it. In September, India had sought special concessions to shield its exports and exporters from new tariffs. However, that proposal was brought back just a couple of days back once again. And now India's Commerce Secretary Rajesh Agarwal has stated that India will be entering into a PTA or a preferential trade agreement with Mexico. Discussions on the matter started on December 12th, and technical teams are discussing. They are engaged on timelines that need to be considered for a preferential trade agreement with Mexico. In fact, these tariffs have been increased on an MFN basis, and these are very well within the WTO framework, is essentially what the Commerce Secretary also stated, and that these tariffs are not targeted at India. These are measures and which are part of a wider trade policy response. That's the communication that the Indian government has gotten from the Mexican government. However, there is limited recourse under WTO rules, even though these tariffs may not be targeted at India, and which is why India will be working out a PTA with Mexico. Now, we've also been given to understand by the Commerce Secretary that Indian supply chains are quite tightly integrated with Mexican supply chains, given the fact that there are 200 Indian companies that are invested in Mexico. And tariffs will impact $2 billion of India's exports in different categories, most importantly in auto components, textiles, iron, steel, plastics, and leather. Overall trade between Mexico and India stands at $8.7 billion. So this is a crucial development that's coming in, especially after last week. We were given to understand that auto industry had approached the Commerce Ministry to have an intervention and get the Mexican government to maintain status quo, so that these tariffs are not going to have a massive impact on India's auto industry.
All right, thank you, Sumita, for getting us all of those details. But time now to take a very short break. We'll be right back with more news and updates on the other side.